Welcome to this episode of Woman to Woman. We have the privilege of having with us today Miss Lisa Baker, the owner of Ascentum. She came on to talk about a topic that she and I have spoken about before. This topic of woman to woman, infidelity, adultery, and betrayal within our sisterhood. And it's not an easy topic to talk about. So I know that all of you, along with myself, really appreciate her being here to talk about this today. Miss Lisa and I met while we were both speaking at a women's empowerment conference. And after I shared my part, Lisa kind of gave a comment that really touched me because she let me know that what I had just said had already just given her a different perspective, a different way to think about this whole woman to woman thing and this woman to woman betrayal. It was truly an equal admiration moment for Lisa and I when we met. And so, again, I'm honored to have her here. But I'm going to let her speak more about what it is that touched her about woman to woman. Go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you so much for inviting me to this conversation. As you said, it's an important topic and so many of us can relate to from one perspective or another. But when you shared, as you said, we were on this women's empowerment event, both speaking about our respective work. And what your talk sparked for me is this a different perspective, a change in thought around sisterhood and why it matters and why we would be concerned about how the other woman and even to blaming her or being angry with her, etc. Because I had always said to myself, like, I don't understand why people are upset with the other woman, why people, get into fights with the other woman, things like that. And because my perspective was always, she didn't do anything to me. She and I didn't have any agreement, right, or commitment to each other. I'm committed to my partner, my husband. And so it's him who is at fault. He's the one. If there's any fight, it's with him. And I never
Yeah.
understood this idea of, why I should care about or be upset with the other woman. But your message and what you shared really opened my mind, and that's what I love about meeting new people and hearing new ideas is it causes us to think. And while I believe, just like you do, that loyalty is key, I never thought about infidelity in the context of a betrayal of our loyalty to each other as sisters. And
Oh,
now I'm all in.
oh my God, you just gave me goosebumps. Thanks for sharing that, Lisa. And yes, that actually is what Lisa told me after our conference, and we spoke a little bit more. But yes, I was really touched that what I said and what my book is about was helping Lisa to change her perspective, which is what I want woman to woman letters from wives to mistresses to do. And in fact, I say as humbly as I can, it is, but that's thanks to all of you. It is changing that perspective of this infidelity and this betrayal from not just being the spouse to spouse betrayal, the husband to wife betrayal. We're starting to see it really as a woman to woman betrayal. And yes, loyalty is key. I mean, what type of sisterhood is it? Indeed, what type of relationship can be sustained at all if there's no loyalty? Even if we don't know one another, that doesn't mean that there can't be any loyalty within this thing that we call sisterhood. I mean, indeed, humanity itself, honestly, cannot be sustained without some level of loyalty. And so I'm so honored again. Thank you, Lisa, for sharing that. And so Lisa said that I could send her a copy of my book, which of course I did. And Lisa, would you mind sharing? I'm going to put you on the spot here. Would you mind sharing with everyone what you actually thought about the book, please? Thank you.
I'm happy to share. First of all, thank you for writing the book. Thank you for taking a fresh perspective on an age old topic,
Like literally, yes.
right? But what you did in your book was, again, take a fresh perspective on it. I loved, so enjoyed, even though it was painful and difficult at times, but I really did enjoy reading the letters. And I think that's so important because it's the beginning of a dialogue. And if we can communicate with each other and share honestly, like without judgment, letting our
Yes.
guards down to just listen, we can learn from
Yes.
all sides. The other thing that made the book so impactful, and I get emotional just thinking about it, but that you were willing to be so vulnerable, to open yourself up to all that comes with sharing your truth. That, you're opening up for people to inspect the most private parts of your life, but you're doing that, your willingness to do that, to write about it so candidly, is healing and it's helpful for so many people. So that's what I think about the book. I say 5 stars, easy. Number one, should be a bestseller on all the best-selling lists for so many reasons.
Thank you. Gonna get me crying up in here. Thank you. Um, and as a writer, that's the impact, of course, that you want to have. And I knew that I had to share my experience. I knew it would not have the same impact, or perhaps people wouldn't relate, or perhaps if I didn't share my experience, people would have just thought that I was just getting into other people's business. So I knew that I had to write and share my experience along with the experiences of the wives who wrote letters for the book and the mistresses who wrote letters from the book for the book. I knew that as as a wife or an ex-wife now, myself, that sharing my story would make it real for others. And that's what I needed and that's what I wanted from the book. And, the whether I agreed with the other side or not, whether I agreed with the mistresses or not, I just really felt that as their sister, I owed them an equal opportunity to be able to share their thoughts and their feelings about sisterhood and loyalty, and other women. And I really struggled. I really went back and forth on whether or not to share the mistress's letters because I was, as a wounded wife myself, I wondered, was it giving them a platform, another opportunity to hurt women, maybe even cause a larger divide amongst us? But I came to the conclusion that the book is called Woman to Woman. And so, again, as their sister, also, whether I like what they do or not, I had to give them an opportunity to speak their truths as well. And that's why I'm honored and so appreciative to have women like yourself that are willing to come forward to share their thoughts and their feelings about this very uncomfortable, very sensitive topic. Um, I really don't think that infidelity or adultery or even sisterhood, I don't think any of those things have ever been intertwined with the word betrayal, right? Um, we think of the other woman, as the whole, the home wrecker, the thought or whatever, and we just leave it at that. I don't think any of us have ever thought of it as being something as deep, as a betrayal. And that is what it is. When you mess around with another woman's husband, you are betraying not only, in my opinion, your womanhood, but you are certainly betraying our sisterhood. And then there's the other side. Believe me, I still get um, emails and messages from wives who don't even agree with my stance. You know, they say that women like me are the problem, that I'm going after the other woman, that I'm not holding the man accountable, and that it's always, the woman's fault. And they feel deeply that, I'm the problem. And I reply back to every single one of them, no matter how angry they are, and ask them and have asked them, can I send you a copy of the book? And I just want to see if you change your perspective. And I can say again with a humble heart, again, because it's these ladies, it's all of you who are willing to read it and share what you think. 100% of those wives had their perspective changed, because woman to woman letters from wives to mistresses is not just about holding the other woman accountable. And it's definitely not about letting the husband off the hook. But I wrote this book for us girls only, but at the core of it, and what the women end up seeing, that it truly is about me trying to bring us back together. But we can't come back together if we're not willing to be honest with one another and not willing to be open about the ways in which we hurt and betray one another. So all of them have come back and said, "Oh my God, now I get it." Love the book. Now, Lisa, you also shared with me that you've been cheated on before as a wife, if I'm remembering correctly. So before you read the book, how, what were your feelings towards the other woman, if you had any feelings about her at all?
So initially, to be very candid, I had no feelings about her at all. This, as you know from personal experience, right? This is not something that just happens overnight, and it's not something that we really are even unaware of. We know,
Yes, we do.
even when we're not ready or not willing to really look at it, we know. And in my case, my ex-husband and I, we had challenges. We had been together for a very long time. We met when we were teenagers. We got married right after I graduated from college, and we were together for 25 years. But in the course of that relationship, for part of the time, we lived apart. He was in Chicago. I lived in Atlanta. But even before that, I knew it just, for all the reasons that we know things aren't right, something's just off. There's always these reasons, explanations, excuses for why
Our
you can't
gut,
be where you're supposed to be. Our gut tells us. And so the lesson for me that I continue to learn and that I try to teach others is listen to your gut, your instincts. Your gut instinct is absolutely right. It does not lie to you.
I
What
agree.
lies to us is our minds. We start to rationalize what our gut is telling us and what we know on a soul level. We know
Yeah,
the way this came to a head for me is after living apart for almost 7 years and my husband, ex-husband, having all of these reasons why he was not coming to Atlanta where my kids and I were, and why he was going to stay in Chicago. I finally was like, enough. And what I did, Ken, I hired a private investigator. And that probably sounds crazy to some people. It's like, why did I need some third party to validate for me what I already knew? Why wasn't my own discontent, unhappiness, all of that? Why wasn't that enough for me to say, enough? No, I needed that extra validation because, certain people, certain types of personalities can cause you to think that it's you, like you're crazy,
uh-huh,
you're making this
uh-huh.
up. I needed that validation. And that's how I received it. A private investigator followed my ex-husband, on a particular day. And this one, and he thought that I was coming to Chicago to meet him. I actually was not. I was still in Atlanta, but he thought I was there and was supposed to meet me. But the private investigator was following him around, trying to figure out where he was going to go. And at the end of the evening, when he realized I wasn't there or that I wasn't coming, he went, I'm going to say, home. Home was not the townhome that we owned together in Chicago, but it was someone else's home. And when the private investigator said, let me look and see who owns this place. And he came up with several names. I was like, stop. There was one that just resonated. Like, I know this name. I know this name. And it happened to be someone that my husband had worked with. He owned a business and she worked for him for years. And that's where he went at like midnight.
Wow. Wow. Whew, I mean, it doesn't matter how many times I hear this from women. I am always heartbroken when I hear that yet another, of our sisters has had to deal with this. And so I am so sorry. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. But I don't think it's crazy that you got the private investigator. I'm sure you're not alone. I just think that we do what we have to do when we're ready to do what we need to do. You know, we just get to that place, whether we feel it in our gut and we're just ignoring it or we're making excuses for them. I think it all comes down to that we're not ready in that moment to either break off the relationship or, even feel some internal shame or internal embarrassment because, we're with someone that was capable of doing that. Um, you just got to a place where you needed to know, you needed that tangible evidence. And I think a lot of women are like that. I know I was like that. I had the gut feelings. I even had, physical proof earrings and things like that. But kind of seeing it with your own eyes, or like the private investigator bringing you irrefutable proof, those are things we can cling to when we're ready to deal with the reality of the situation. And it may not even be that, we're really trying to protect the guy or make justifications or excuses for the guy. I really think it comes down to self-preservation. You know, um, for me, all the classic signs were there, coming home late at night or the next morning, running to get out of earshot when his phone rang, and as you read in my book, coming home not smelling right. And then of course I was just ridiculously, in love with him. And so, it just kind of makes me think of that scripture too, that we're not supposed to find someone guilty without proof. And so again, we go through whatever lengths we need to go to, I think, to protect ourselves from the hurt that we know we're going to feel. And so no, you getting the private investigator wasn't crazy at all. Um, we want that proof. We need it in order to move on. And you found out with the private investigator, a lot of the wives I've spoken with, and myself included, we find out, truths about what our husbands are doing from the mistress. The mistress reaches out and calls, and that's how we find out. And that usually is where the fighting begins, right? Because this woman has the audacity to call us, and to tell us some of them are, being mean-spirited, to kind of brag about what they're doing with their husbands. But then there are those unintentional mistresses. I've spoken about them before, and in my book, the unintentional mistress who is reaching out to the wife for no other reason other than to let her know what her husband is doing, and that once she found out, she ended it. And she was not trying to get in all that and was not trying to hurt the wife. Again, just calling to say, hey, I'm sorry, this is what's going on, thought you would want to know. So we thank them, those the unintentional mistress, right? Because they're not only being loyal to themselves, right? They're standing up for themselves, but they are also standing up for that wife, their sister. And therein is that loyalty that I'm talking about. I was watching some talk show the other day, and of course there were two women on there fighting over, you know, some guy that is, nobody's prize. And you know, because of the perspective that I have, of course, I'm always sad watching the two women go after each other. But I get it. Intellectually, I get it, right? There's this competition thing. The wife is, you're not going to take my husband, and that the arrogant mistress is, well, I've already taken your husband. And so, there's that fighting that always breaks my heart between women, but I'm trying to fix that. I talk about um, the three different types of mistresses in my book. One, the unintentional mistress, which I just mentioned. Then there's the self-justified mistress, the mistress who didn't know he was married, but when they do find out, they don't leave him. They come up with justifications for why they should stay. And then, of course, I talk about the ruthless mistress, those of our sisters who intentionally set out to be involved with another woman's husband. It's very tough to see the perspective of the ruthless mistress, but I sort of believe we still have to listen to them, right? That's the only way to have meaningful conversations. If we won't listen to them, they're certainly not going to listen to us. And so that's why I am so happy that this book is starting to spark the conversation. No, conversations, because we need to have serious conversations, more than one, about why in, this day and age, why in 2023 we don't fully seem to grasp that we are so much better together, so much stronger together than we are divided. And, I'm just one person. I can't reach all of the self justified mistresses by myself. I can't reach all of the ruthless mistresses by myself, right? But we have to come at them with some level of respect, some level of loyalty, so that we can have meaningful conversations on how to heal these fractures in our sisterhood. And so, Lisa, you also shared another personal story with me about something you went through that I wouldn't say surprised me. I think sometimes when you get surprised, that can kind of come with judgment, and there is no judgment from me. That doesn't mean I don't have an opinion, and I'm going to give it, but it doesn't come with any judgment. I think I was just kind of like, oh, okay, she really does have different perspectives. And so I'm not gonna tell it. I'm gonna let you tell it. Go ahead.
You don't want to spill my tea. So
No, I really do try to let you beautiful sisters tell your own story, but you have two perspectives, one as a cheated on wife, and the other,
the other as someone who has cheated. And so I absolutely see both sides of this coin, if you will. And again, there is no, let me just say this candidly. I am a person of faith. I believe in God's word, and I wholeheartedly believe that adultery is wrong. Let me say that. Even knowing that and believing that it is wrong, I still made that mistake. So I come from a place like you. There is no judgment because I've been on both sides, and I understand that sometimes there is a whole set of circumstances that will lead us down a path where we end up someplace that we didn't want to be.
now let me just ask you this really quickly. So you say you were unfaithful, um, or you cheated. Were you with a man who was single
Yes.
or okay, okay. So he was single, he wasn't married. Okay, go on.
So I was unfaithful to my husband. And again, there's no justification for any of it. I can tell you what I was thinking, how I was feeling. I was very young, and this was early in our marriage, and I felt alone. And, my husband was it sounds terrible to say always. Let me say often. He was very often off doing his own thing, and I was by myself and feeling, lonely or whatever. That's not an excuse. A lot of it came from my own insecurities and internal stuff that had nothing to do with my ex-husband. And so what happened was, again, the space is created. The Bible says, don't give any room, no place for the devil. But the place was created because I was feeling lonely. I was feeling isolated. He was not around. And here comes someone who just so happened to be someone who cared for me. This guy was my hairstylist. Now, this is a whole, it's tangled web, right? My ex-husband thought he was gay because he had the belief that if you're doing hair, you have to be gay. He was taking care of my hair, making sure I look good. And sometimes as it happened, I would be in the shop late in the evening or be one of the last people in the shop and we just talk. And that's how it started. We just talk. And then one time that talking led to, oh, well, we're here late. Have you eaten? No, you want to go out to have something to eat. Sure, why not? Innocent enough, right? On the surface. And so we go out to eat. Nothing happened, but enough of that over time, the talking, connecting. Now, what I found myself doing is if I had a hair appointment, I wanted to make sure I looked extra nice that day when I went to the salon. And so this is how it starts. So when people say, oh, it just happened, no, that's a lie that you're telling yourself. Nothing just happened. So I'm only going to speak for me. I had ample opportunities to prevent this from happening. I could have changed my hairstylist at any time. I didn't have to keep going to that salon when I knew I was in trouble. When I started trying to dress a certain way or feel a certain way to go get my hair done, I knew there was a problem. Okay, so you have ample opportunities, and the time when it happened, and it happened once. Not that that makes it better or worse. It wasn't an ongoing thing. Happened one time, but that one time, as we're heading to the place, all along there's opportunity to say no and to back out. You get to the place where you are, there's still opportunity to say no. There's so many opportunities, so many ways for escape. Again, with every temptation there is a way for our escape. The problem is I didn't take all the ways to escape. Now in my case, my now ex-husband didn't know a thing about it. Now, I don't know what that says about me or him or the relationship, so I won't put a judgment on it, but he had no idea. He found out many years later because I told him. And that's a whole other.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, thank you, because it's not always easy, to go back and bring back up things, that we've done, things that we perhaps have healed from or moved on from. So thank you so much for being willing to share that with all of us. So this book being about the woman to woman betrayal or the sister to sister betrayal, have you ever found yourself dating someone who, was taken, was married, even if you didn't know, but, found out later perhaps that they were seeing somebody else at the same time while seeing you?
Yeah, that has happened to me for sure. After I was divorced and got, back into the dating pool, I was seeing a guy and, again, thought things were going well. I really liked him. There was nothing about him or the way we were interacting with each other that would give me the sense that he was with someone else. He was very open. So I thought in sharing his history and all of this kind of information, the way I found out I was on a plane heading out of the country on a trip with my girlfriends. I had texted him to say, hey, I just boarded the plane. And I got a call shortly thereafter from a number that had the first few numbers were the same as his. And I thought it was him calling me from, work phone or something. And so I answered. To my surprise, there was a woman on the other end. And she said, I'm so and so's fiance. And I'm like, wait, excuse me, what? Like, and just as she started talking, the flight attendant was making an announcement on the plane. And so I said, hang on just a minute. I'm on a plane. Give me a second. And when the announcement stopped, then I said, okay, I'm sorry, who are you again? no, she said, I'm so and so's ex fiance, and I just wanted to know if you knew that for the last 3 years he's been engaged. And now I'm all confused, right? So I'm like, first of all, so you're saying he was engaged for the last 3 years, but not to you because you're the ex fiance? Like, she's like, no, 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 no. He was engaged to me, but he's not your fiance anymore. When that, oh, we just broke up today.
She saw those texts and was done.
And she said, yeah, I had known about you from some other thing. And I was just honestly confused because
Yeah.
it just wasn't adding up to me. But what I said to her is, listen, you don't have to worry about me because I don't do this. This is not who I am. You and he can work this out amongst yourselves. I'm out of this equation.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Good for you. Good for you. You were out of there. See, and that's what sisterhood looks like to me, right? But looking back on that situation, I mean, obviously you bowed out gracefully, I would say. But do you think that you bowed out just because, of course, him lying and misleading and cheating on you? But looking back, do you think that you also bowed out of some sort of feeling or empathy or sympathy towards the fiance? What do you think?
It was all of it because, like I said, having been on both sides of this equation, I know that there is no good that really comes from on either side, right? It's hurtful all around. It's not an isolated injury, right? All parties involved suffer in some ways. And from my own experience, one thing about me that I like about myself, I'm not perfect. I've made many mistakes, but I try really hard not to make the same one twice. That was many years ago. I was in my late 20s. I'm now 56 years old. It hasn't happened since because that's the commitment I've made to myself. And that's, again, where my faith comes in. I have truly repented and turned because I see the harm that it caused, not just to my ex-husband, but to me, my view of myself, the this conflict, right, between how I was behaving, how I behaved in that instance with who I know myself to be. And so I was like, no, I'm not doing that to anyone, not another man, not another woman. And I'm not going to allow that to be done to me. I'm typically the person that likes to understand things. I want to investigate, get all the details. This time, that lady calling me, her saying this to me, I said, you know what? That's enough. I don't need any further investigation. There's nothing else to be said. You obviously got my number from him. You're telling me this. Oh, and let's make it worse. She said, oh, he's here right now. I have you on speaker. He can hear us. I'm done. He didn't say a word. If that was true, and I assume it was, there's no reason for her to lie to me. He did not say a word.
Wow. Wow. We have a little thing in common there. My ex-husband's mistress also had me on speaker while she was waking him up on the couch so that she could ask him, if I was telling her the truth. It isn't it crazy that somehow the other woman somehow tricks herself into believing that this cheater, this man that she knows, if nothing else, she knows he's lying to his wife. So she knows he's a liar, but somehow they convince themselves that he's being honest with them. I don't get that. Well, that's neither here nor there. I wonder about some of our sisters, but that's why I'm working on. That's why I wrote the book, and that's why I'm working on so many big things to help us to have these conversations, to help to bring us together. But it has to start from a place of honesty. That is the only way. That has to be, mixed in with that foundation in order for us to get to a place to where we can trust one another more than we trust a cheating liar. Yeah, so I mean, we have a lot of work to do. That messing around with another woman's husband, finally coming to realize that that is a betrayal, again, a betrayal of our womanhood, a betrayal, towards this sisterhood, um, has to come from a place of honesty if we're going to be able to work it out, and not just honesty with each other, right? We have to be able to be honest with ourselves. We have to be able to say that, doing that was a betrayal of who I am as a woman, and I did betray another woman. I did betray my sister, and that this thing that I'm a part of, this amazing sisterhood, I betrayed it by doing that. And just as important as that honesty with ourselves, we have to be able to be honest with each other. And we also have to be willing to listen. Again, it can be very difficult for a wife to want to hear anything that the mistress has to say. And as you read from the real life letters from the mistresses in my book, some of them don't care or seem to not care at all about women. And the only way we're going to reach their hearts and their minds is to listen to them. Because in listening, you can kind of figure out where the hurt is, where the damage is, right? So, that's why I'm working on some really big things to help to bring women together. And, speaking of listening to one another, Miss Lisa, it was an honor to have you sharing with us today so we could listen and learn and grow in our respect for one another. And listening to you, lets me know that writing this book, again, confirmed for me that writing this book was necessary and that it is a healing and that it is a positive thing. Um, but you confirmed that we've got work to do. Yeah, yeah, we've got work to do. Yeah, we do. We absolutely do. And so in closing, I want to ask you a question. What do you think that we can do as women to, heal these fractures in our sisterhood, and I'm not saying it's going to be easy, right? Because, we're dealing with deep distrust, mistrust of one another. We still have sisters out there that don't seem to care about how they hurt other women. Um, so what do you think we can do? We call each other sis and sister and queen, but unfortunately to me, not all of it is genuine because the foundation, right? The foundation of our sisterhood is so damaged. So what do you actually, you know what? I have a better question. I'm sorry. Now, what would you say to our sister who is intentionally being that ruthless mistress?
Yeah, that's good. What I would say to you, sis, if you are knowingly in what you would call a relationship with someone else's husband, I would first of all say or ask you this question: why don't you think more of yourself? Why is it that you don't believe you are worthy of having a man commit to you and solely you? Because you are deserving of it. And do you really believe that he is loyal to you, faithful to you when he's married to someone else? And even if he left his wife, would you want him? Would you want him? Would he be worthy of being the man in your life, knowing how he is treating his wife and you? You deserve much more than that. And I would say to you, when you start to love yourself more, when you recognize that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, that there is so much more available to you than that, then you won't want him because you'll know you're worthy of so much more.
That's right. That's right. Thank you. Thank you for that. That is so true. she is worthy of so much more. Yeah, yeah. She's got to stop finding her worth in that man that's not worth her precious value. Thank you so much for sharing that. That really hit.
It starts in here truly with how we view ourselves and loving ourselves. I will share this one thing is that I can remember a time when I was so hurt and broken because of relationship trauma. And I remember crying out to God. And I said, God, if it's your will, I would just like to know what it is to be truly loved by someone. I mean, I have friends, family that love me, but I mean in a love relationship with a man that
Yeah.
I love because I know I'm a loving and giving person. And just as I'm sitting here having this conversation with you, I pray that prayer. And this is what I heard God say. Because I said to him, please, I don't want to love him anymore. Let me know what it is to truly be loved. And God said to me, you don't have to stop loving him. You have to start loving yourself. That's the key. When we love ourselves, there are just some things that we will not allow. There are some lines that we will not cross because of our love for ourselves. And I firmly believe that. And so I am happy to report that God answered that prayer. I am in a loving marriage. I have no doubt that I am loved. I have no fears, concerns, worries, even an inkling that my husband is cheating, would cheat. He doesn't have to worry about that with me either, because we can heal from these wounds and you can have love and a healthy, full, vibrant life after infidelity. But there's work that has to be done to heal and to recover, and that takes time.
I I am so happy that you got the love that you desire, the love that you deserve. And like you, that's what I want for all of our sisters, right? To have that type of secure, confident love where they won't settle for anything less than the very best for themselves. You know, I talk a lot about loyalty is key, and most often it's in that woman to woman dynamic, but loyalty is key. Loyalty, you have to have loyalty towards yourself first, right? And each and every one of our sisters is worthy, so much more worthy, than a man who is lying to her and his wife and God knows how many other women, right? So be loyal to you so that you can get the type of love our dear sister Lisa got and deserves. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, your truth, your encouragement. I love you so much, you and my bro-in-law. And I just know that you really are going to touch somebody's heart with our Girl Talk today. So thank you so much for being on this episode of Woman to Woman.
I love you more. Thank you for holding this space for us to talk today and for other women to be able to share their experiences and their truths. And I pray that as a result of your work, that loyalty will be key, that our sisterhood will be rebuilt on a sure foundation that cannot be broken.
And again, thank you so much for being here for all of us and for speaking to me, woman to woman. I love you and I hope you have a great day. Bye.